Welcome to this third session online of the Gamification and Serious Game Symposium. It's my great pleasure today to start a new session, and this session will be concerning more directly La Source, who is welcoming us on Thursday and Friday on site. La Source is a nursing school, and today is actually the first session concerning health. There will be also two other sessions. Julien, can you put the slide concerning the program, please? As you can see, last week we've seen a session relative to education on Monday, and on the following Thursday, it was about training. Today will be about health, and as I just said before, we will have on Thursday on site directly, but also online, two sessions, Health 2 and Health 3. Well, now that we almost know everything about the current state of GSGS, I will let Julien Schechter animate this third session, and I will welcome also all the participants of this session. Julien, your turn.
Thank you very much, Stefan. It's my pleasure again to be your host. For those who don't know me, I am a former journalist. I love serious games and questions around gamification, and I have been lucky enough to be involved in a few games. For now, I'm very happy to be your host today. It's the third online session. Stefan has already told you about the two previous ones. In a few days, everyone will be able to meet in Lausanne in real life. Wow, that's going to be something. I hope you are going to be there with us. We already had two interesting talks on the 28th of June and last Thursday as well on education and training. Actually, you can see those presentation and the discussion that followed on the YouTube channel of GSGS'21. And today you can also participate by asking your questions or making your comments in the chat section on the right of your screen if you are watching us on the computer, or just below if you are on a phone. Today we have four new authors and creators to present to you with four different projects in the health sector. We know from previous editions of GSGS that health and serious games are a good match to tackle all kinds of issues. And I'm sure that you will be impressed by what our guests have done today. You will see a short video presentation of the four projects, and then we will have a talk all together with you, and you can participate, as I said before. So let's start with the dinner. It could have been a good thing to say a few hours back. It's now 2 o'clock, but we'll start with your project, Hugo Nashberg. Welcome. Your mic is not open.
Welcome. Thank you very much, Julian, for inviting me here.
It's good to have you, Hugo. Thank you very much. We will see your video presentation, and then we'll have a few questions before the big talk. So here's the project, the dinner.
Recent evidence indicates that unhealthy things, like junk food, alcohol, or cigarettes, can have the valuation reduced by cognitive interventions. In these interventions, people have to repeat the same movements over and over again for long practice sessions. They quickly become boring to the participants and are thus challenging to implement in the everyday life. If they are not focused on the task, the efficiency of the intervention will decrease drastically. This issue can, however, be solved by gamifying the task. To this aim, we have developed and tested a gamified intervention to reduce how people value unhealthy food, the diner. We have succeeded in using this video game software to change how players value unhealthy food. After training with this game at home and on Android smartphone or tablets, our players evaluate their favorite unhealthy food as less attractive. This software includes two tasks to change the player's perception of food. In the first task, pictures come and go on the screen. Players have to drag as fast as possible the healthy items. If they are not fast enough, they lose a life. But if they see an unhealthy item, they have to stop their movement. Otherwise, they also lose a life. This trains players to avoid attractive unhealthy food, in turn turning them to like them less. In the second task, players have to ignore all pictures that are not circled in green. As soon as a green circle appears, the player has to react fast enough to not lose a life. Because healthy food are always accompanied with a green circle, but unhealthy food never are, this trains the player to ignore the unhealthy food and to focus only on the healthy ones. In both tasks, the goal of the player is to survive as long as possible despite the increasing difficulty, giving more pressure to answer faster and faster. We have asked 100 players to play this game for 6 hours over 1 month. 95% of them evaluated their favorite unhealthy food 20% less after this training. This graph represents these players. They were split into a control and experimental group. In the experimental group, you see that before the intervention, in red, their ratings of unhealthy food were way higher than after the intervention, in blue. This decrease in the experimental group was significantly more important than in the control group. These results validate the effect of our intervention and how players change the perception of unhealthy food. This change in behavior allows for easier and healthier choices in their everyday life. Players have to restrain themselves less when in front of attractive and healthy food, what traditional dieting fails at. The diner is a flexible intervention. It can be applied for the change of any type of objects. Food here can be easily replaced by soda, cigarettes, or alcohol. We are currently adapting the diner to study its impact to the consumption of sugary beverages, soda, energy drink, iced coffee, and so on. If you are interested in our publication or to our software, do not hesitate to contact me or our team.
Thank you for the nice music, Hugo, and for the game, of course, the diner. We will talk with all the other authors and creators with this game. Welcome to everyone joining us on the YouTube channel of GSGS. You can write your comments or questions just on the right in the chat box so we can answer you as soon as we start the discussion. But first, Hugo, I just want to maybe meet you a little more. Can you tell us a few words about yourself, what you do, who you are, where you live?
Yeah, so we are living, I am living with my wife in Fribourg. I am a psychologist with a master's degree, and I am now finishing my PhD in cognitive neuroscience at the Department of Medicine at the Neurology Unit. And me and my team took 3-4 years to develop this task to change how people perceive food in particular.
Yeah, it looks very interesting. We'll have a few questions for you. What is the actual stage of your project?
We have finished the first very big publication, the very first big study to validate the ground of this, to prove that the game can in fact change how people perceive food. And we are now conducting a second study right now where we ask more than 300 players to come test our game and see if it can change how they consume soda. So we ask them how much soda, how much Coca-Cola, iced tea you drink per day before and after the game, and we expect people to drink less.
And we will address all this question. Very nice to see a game trying to change some behavior. It's a great task to complete. We will talk about that with you, Hugo. It's very nice to have you.
Thank you.
I would like to introduce our next author and creator today. It's Dominique Correa. Hi, Dominique. Dominic is not yet with us. I hope he can meet with us as well. We will see his presentation with all his team. It's about gamification and patients' rights. It's a serious game for students in healthcare, and we have the video presentation, which is quite good. So you will have an idea of what Dominic is presenting. I hope he will be with us or someone of his team to answer our questions after that. But let's first have the video.
Good morning, I'm Dominique Correa, actually teacher at ESAV, School of Health Sciences in Lausanne, and it's a pleasure to present you PRIT's project, Patients' Rights and Innovative Teaching Strategy, developed by a team from ESAV and HEIGVD. This project aims to developing a serious game that will support the training of future health professionals in the field of patients' rights by encouraging knowledge acquisition and practical skills development. The knowledge and the implementation of patients' rights are fundamental in health professional practices. But for our students, it's difficult to understand the importance of legal concepts and how they can apply into their future practices. The learning experience intends to challenge students' mental models and support a transition from quality of care only to quality of care and respect of patients' rights.
Welcome to the presentation of PRIT's series game. This game has been developed in collaboration with Albasim Research Axis of the School of Management and Engineering Vaud and HESAV, School of Health Science Vaud. It aims to support the courses on patient rights given at HESAV. In the game, the player assumes the role of a caregiver and his objectives are to meet the needs of the patient while respecting his rights. The idea is to make students aware of patient rights and to give them an idea of the situation they might face in their profession. This game will be used initially by about 100 HESAV students and can be used in class or remotely. This presentation is divided into 3 parts: a demo of the game, how does it fit into a pedagogical scenario, and content management. Let's start with the presentation of the game. When accessing the simulation, we first see the home page with a set of thumbnails. Each card represents a patient with a brief description of his pathology. I choose Mr. Horiu's card. Here I can see a description of the patient and his pathology. I'm also learning about my role as a healthcare professional. Let's start the first meeting with the patient. On this page, I, as player, discover the specific objective of this meeting. The patient begins the dialogue, and I have a choice of replies. If I need to, I can go to the literature to find some guidance on how to better manage this situation. The patient will react to my answers. His reaction depends on my choices. As I continue, I will be faced with new choices that challenge my patient right knowledge. When the dialogue is over, I can return to the patient's home page. In this case, the completion of the first encounter has unlocked a first set of exercises. Teachers can determine the type and the number of exercises to be done after a dialogue. For example, single answer questions, multiple choice questions, or questions that require for custom text or answer. The completion of exercises unlock new dialogues, exercises, or documents. Now, I would like to discuss some of the choices made in the design of the series game. as well as the modalities for its integration into a global pedagogical scenario. A simulation is a reproduction of reality. When developing a simulation, we must ask ourselves what part of reality we're trying to reproduce. In this case, the encounters parts create an immersion by reproducing a professional situation. Thus, this game tends to create cognitive fidelity rather than physical fidelity. Physical fidelity would have been to try to reproduce the audio-visual reality of the relationship with the patient, but instead it is focused on cognitive reality. In other words, reproducing the thought made by the health professional in this real situation. In order not to break the immersion, in the simulation as in reality, there is no feedback on what is right or wrong. The debriefing will be done outside of the simulation. The simulation by itself isn't a game, but can be seen as a gaming and motivating factor, especially when it encourages the user to be reflective. Although PRIT is mainly based on simulation concepts, the possibility of progress by unlocking activities is a classic game mechanic. It gives an idea of challenge and encourages the user to progress in the game. The PRIT game is only one part of the pedagogical scenario. The activities surrounding the simulation are as important, if not more, than the simulation itself. It will therefore be integrated into a global pedagogical concept, including activities around it, before, during, and after. Before, students may have a general introduction to patient rights. Next, a pre-briefing should ensure that students understand the objective of using the simulation. During the encounter, it is possible to access documents. This can be seen as a kind of problem-based learning approach. The aim is to encourage students to acquire by themselves the knowledge that will enable them to solve the problem they are facing. In addition, social constructivist approaches are also used. For example, students can work in groups, allowing them to confront their opinions before answering a question. After encounters, exercises are intended to complete or reinforce what has been experienced in the simulation part. Then, a debriefing phase on what has been achieved is also planned outside the software. At this moment, the teacher can also provide additional theoretical contributions. After having seen the game and its pedagogical integration, let's look at the hidden side of the software's operation, content management. To develop such a simulation, it is necessary to collaborate with a multidisciplinary team. The PRIT project brings together the skills needed to develop the game, which are health, law, pedagogy, and engineering. And in this type of collaboration, several questions arise in terms of content management. How do you allow jurists to participate in the creation of content? How to allow teachers to adapt the content to the evolution of educational objectives or to the evolution of the law? Thanks to the developed authoring system, the content can be edited directly in the game interface. The same tools allow editing more complex content, such as dialogue. Dialogues are created in a visual way. The interaction sequence of the dialogue is modeled like a state machine, as a flowchart. This allows to see the entire dialogue as a single picture. In this case, the states, dark blue boxes, represent what the patient says, and the links between them, with the light blue boxes, are the choices the user can make. The same tools can be used to design exercise or manage the activation of dialogues, exercise, or documents. The experience with the creation of PRITs has shown that this simplified content editing solution have allowed non-computer scientists after a short training period to create new patient records. To end this presentation, it is to be stated that the PRIT project is supported by the Digital Competence Center of the University of Applied Science Western Switzerland, and also that it is being used as a use case in the Swiss National Science Foundation project, COLLAB. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for the video, Dominic, and I hope we will be able to see you, but I guess we can hear you right now, or maybe even see you. So Dominic, are you with us in one way or
Yes.
another?
Did you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Yeah.
Very nice to have you. We hope to see you by the end of
Yeah,
the
I'm
discussion.
sorry, but
No,
I
no,
have
no
a,
problem. We'll
I
just
have
say
a-
hi. Can you just tell us a few words about you?
Oh yeah, actually I'm a teacher in HESAV, the Health Schools of Lausanne, and I'm a nurse at the beginning, and actually we are we are making a project about the right patients, and that's the reason we developed the project PRITS, and it's a very interesting challenges for us.
And what is the stage of your project? Is the game still running?
Yeah, it's running, and we hope to begin the first tests in September for the first time with our students, and after that make the first evaluations to validate the project. And we have a good energy to continue and maybe for another people like the patients, because in the beginning the project is about application for the students, but we are thinking about a development for the patients too, maybe.
Hey, that's one of my question I will wanted to ask you later. Yeah, but it's cool. That's nice. It's cool to have you, Dominique. Thank you very much. And we'll also talk about the amazing work you made on the interface that is behind the game, which is one of major problems of doing serious games with all kinds of people getting involved. We will address this topic later. And if anyone joining us has questions or comments, just put them in the chat box of the YouTube channel and we'll address your questions. I'll say a quick hi to Fabio, to Sam, and to Nicolas, who have joined us already on the YouTube channel. Thank you very much, Dominique. We'll go to Johan. Hi, Johan Jacquet. We know you from some of the previous GSGS exhibitions as well. It's nice to have you back. I hope to see you here somewhere. And where is Johan? Has he left? I can't see him anymore in the room. We'll wait for him to connect again if he can do this. And in the meantime, we'll have a welcome for you, Guillaume.
Yes, but Johan is here.
Johan is here. Okay, Johan. Hi.
Hello everyone. Sorry, yeah, my computer had a bug. That's why I'm moving to non-digital games that I'm going to present to you.
Hey, maybe you can introduce yourself before the presentation. Who are you, Johan?
Oh yeah, sure. I'm a non-digital native, I guess. I live in La Chaux-de-Fonds with a bad connection, and I create serious games, mostly board games and live-action roleplay games and roleplay games, etc. And I'm a psychologist, trained as a psychologist, mostly health psychologist, clinical psychologist, and social psychologist. Well, you know, we can put many things in studies, and that's it. I work for Entrée de Jeu, and I'm gonna introduce.
Cool. Tell us about the tabletop game kit for youth on addictions and risk behaviors.
Yes. Let me find it and share my screen. So, here it is. Okay, so here we are. Can you see it? Fantastic.
Yes, we do.
So, hello everyone. I'm very pleased to be here, and thank you for the introduction and the first presentations. My name is Johan Jacquet. I work for Entrée de Jeu, and I'm gonna introduce you to our last project, the last project we launched. I mean, we finished basically. It's in collaboration with Addiction Neuchâtel, and it talks about youth, risk behaviors, and prevention mostly. So it's called ça fait plaise, meaning it pleases me, or it's pleasurable, literally. And it's a project that it's a tool. It's a tool for facilitating discussions with youth in various situations of use. For example, schools. So it can be used with up to 24 people. It could be used in schools, in events, etc., mostly targeting youth, and discussing addictions and risk behaviors. So the goal, one of the objectives was to develop a serious game for as tools for social workers dealing with teenagers, and also their behaviors in general, their behaviors which can be risky, and within many activities that they use in their spare times. One of the objectives too was to address screen-based activities through tabletop games, which are not screen-based, as the definition is saying. And we included many concepts into the content of the game. For example, pleasure, of course, because every activity related to addiction can have a link to pleasure. Popularity, because we choose activities which are popular, but also pleasurable. Motivation, balance between activities, risks, addictions, consequences, and resources to deal with all these activities and their consequences. My presentation is based mostly on the material, so I'll lead you through the material, discovery of the material, that also self-explains the game. So the first part, the most important part of the facilitated game set is the cards that are activity cards. You have 25 cards which describe different activities that teenagers can do in their spare time. Here you have 5 of them, and also a card presenting the categories. So each card has a title. For example, here, se confier à un proche means to talk to someone close when you have a problem, for example. Then each card belongs to 1 or 2 categories. Here it belongs to the category crisis activities and also social activities. Each card has a risk level and a cost. Well, talking to somebody, except if it's a psychotherapist, is free, for example. But social networks, you need a mobile phone, etc. It has a cost, financial cost. The setup of the game, because that's the first game. Then you have a second one, but the first game has a setup with a board, and you have 10 of the 25 activities that are selected by the social workers before actually using the game with the teenagers. You select 10 of these activities, and each player has to pick 5 of those cards around the board. Of course, you take 1 card, and then your co-players take 1 each, etc. 5 times. And then at the end of this picking cards, you count the number of popular cards you chose, of cards that are more pleasurable according always to the players. You try to find balance, etc. And if you are with the most popular cards, you win the trophy of the popularity, which is the little thumb up. You can also win the frugal trophy if you spared some money. You can also have the balance if you have very various categories, and you can also have the trophy of the pleasure if you chose very pleasurable activities, and the prudence trophy if you chose categories and activities that are less risky. How are these cards popular or pleasurable? It's not the social workers themselves deciding at the beginning, it's the players themselves, it's the teenagers at the beginning of the game with a die. They have a black and a transparent die showing to the other players what they think are popular activities and what they think are pleasurable ones. After this, we discuss, it's always facilitated by social workers. We discuss pleasure, we discuss risk, we discuss popularity, etc. But we also discuss, and it's with a plenary session after a table session, we discuss the consequences, potentially the negative also consequences of behaviors, whatever they are. You can have a negative consequence by reading a book. If you cut yourself with a page, for example, it's less risky, but still there is some risk. Those categories of consequences are 5. It's based on biopsychosocial model of health, but also we added the finances and also addiction, because it's an addiction interested institution, and finances are part of what they are interested in, with mostly gambling behaviors. After we discuss the consequences, we go towards the resources, because to avoid or to diminish these negative consequences, teenagers can use some resources which are either external, for example, other people, other teenagers, professional people, etc., or internal, for example, their personality, or using meditation, or solving problems, etc. So these are discussed. It's A3 format hard posters. These are discussed together in relation to the activities, the risky or less risky activities that were chosen by the adolescents. And here we are. We have a briefing at the beginning, a briefing at the end. Everything is facilitated by the social workers. As a conclusion, in terms of collaboration, it was a successful public-private partnership. I'm representing a private company, and we're also dealing with a public institution. We can use tabletop games, for example, a board game, and something that is more narrative, talking about resources, consequences, etc., as tools for prevention with youth. The project was regionally based and made. It's kind of handcrafted in Fab Labs, etc., with wooden pieces, etc. Well, the plastic coins are not made in the region, but whatever. Most of the material is really based and regionally based and made. It was well appreciated by users before now, and this also shows the difference in institutions. We are not a university. We're not working with a university, and we most of the time lack funding for actually testing efficacy scientifically. And as a trained psychologist, I'm always frustrated because we don't have the finance to test at a wide level our creations. And we hope this tool to be used in other regions as well. I hope I was clear with this presentation. I hope to see you in Lausanne also on Thursday or Friday, and feel free to contact me today with the questions or later. And thank you very much for your attention for this live presentation.
Thank you, Johan, for being live with us, not on a video, and your presentation was pretty impressive. Very good board game. We will talk about this board game in a few minutes as well with all the other participants. I would like to welcome also Thomas Enriquez, who has joined us on YouTube as well. He's one of the speakers that you can hear in the 2 previous sessions. If you have any questions or comments for our speakers or creators, just feel free to use the chat box just around here somewhere on YouTube if you're on the computer, or just below if you're using a phone to follow us on YouTube. We'll have our last speaker and last presentation before we start to talk all together about these quite nice projects. It's Guillaume de Cormeil. Hi, Guillaume.
Hi everyone.
It's very nice to have you. We'll see your video, and then we'll meet you a little more, and we'll have a few words about your project before the conversation. Let's go with the video of Guillaume.
Okay, thanks. Hello everyone, my name is Guillaume de Cormeil. I'm a French nurse and a trainer in health simulation, and currently I'm a PhD student in cognitive psychology, and I work with Sim4S Society, which is a numerical solution editor for the initial or continuing training of healthcare professionals. Sim4S, with 30 trainers of 27 French nursing schools, elaborates a full collection of screen-based simulator for nursing students. According to the International Dictionary of Simulation, the main difference between the serious games and screen-based simulator is the possibility to conversing with the virtual patient to allow clinical reasoning and analyze the situation through a graphical immersion developed under Unity. During 3 years, nursing students alternate between clinical practice and theoretical courses. As you know, the COVID pandemic has blocked everyone at home. Even the students nursing have been confined at home, but for some students, they are integrated in the clinical practice as a support. Screen-based simulator were at the heart of the educational system to ensure continuity in the initial training of nursing students who were teleworking during the COVID-19 pandemic. Sim4S has allowed to the 323 French nursing schools to use a collection of 35 virtual case situations addressing all promotions. This collection was set up free of charge to ensure pedagogical continuity for all French nursing willing schools. During each virtual case situation, the student follows the evolution of the patient according to the patient clinical pathway. Learner converse virtually with the patient, mobilize knowledge to elaborate their clinical reasoning, perform clinical examinations, participating in multi-professional meetings, and solve different quiz-based tasks and questions that will constitute an overall score through computer traces. For example, in Switzerland, a team of the Geneva University and of higher healthcare education has used it. For this today, we distribute an anonymous online survey to students who had or hadn't used the screen-based simulators. We want to evaluate the students' motivation to learn with this new pedagogical device, their satisfaction and their perception of usefulness. We collect 1,363 surveys. 870 students didn't use these screen-based simulators, and 493 students use it. We can observe that first students use it more than third-year students. This can be explained by the fact that third-year students were in clinical practice as assistant working. For the item motivation, satisfaction and perception, the students, we couldn't use it because of time constraints, didn't know that it was possible to use. They watched the video presentation to get their opinion of this device. All students seems to be motivated to use this device with an average of 66%. The perception of students follow the literatures. They all think that it used as a complement to the initial training. The average satisfaction is 75%. As with all innovative devices, satisfaction is often high and should be measured again in the future. Finally, the use of virtual clinical situation close to the real thing would reduce the stress of students before arriving in clinical practice. It's normal that students who haven't tested do not have the same perception. In conclusion, the use of screen-based simulator should be used as a complement to the initial training of nursing students, assisted and coached by a trainer. This device has its place to increase their experiential curriculum of the student in spite of the distancial modality of use. It's important to adapt the digital tools to the pedagogical objective and the mode of use, and to respect the debriefing phases. Another screen-based simulator is currently available on dose calculation and drug preparation to reduce medication-related adverse events. Thank you and great congress. See you, bye-bye.
Thank you, Guillaume, for this nice presentation. And we have you live on this discussion, and we will start our discussion all together. But first, a few words maybe about yourself. Can you tell us where you are, what you do?
Yeah, thanks. I'm a French nurse in ICU in Toulouse, in France, and a healthcare instructor of simulation. And actually, I'm a PhD student in my last year, and I work with a French society, Sim4Health, who are a French editor for virtual simulator or screen-based simulator for healthcare professionals.
And for your project, is it still, what stage is it in right now?
Yes, you know, during the PhD you are 3 studii, and about my 1 studi, it was this national studi, about 1,033 students during the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdown at home. And actually, I'm interested in the individual factors that influence student nursing learning on screen-based simulators. And because actually screen-based simulator is a new educational tools in a nursing school in France. And I learn about learning strategy, self-determination, self-efficacy, self-esteem through computer traces. And it's my whole PhD.
Okay, thank you very much, Guillaume. Actually, my first question is going to be to you, but not only to you, because it's a question that is a little bit provocative. I like to ask those kinds of questions. If anyone in the audience joining us still on the YouTube channel wants to ask anything to our 4 creators, developers, just put your questions or comments as Vera Bustamante did. Hi, Vera. We'll address your question in a few seconds. Just feel free to comment or ask something, and we will be happy to answer you. So my first question is something I hear a lot when we talk about serious game. Is my serious game, for example, Dominique, it's the same in your presentation. Your game is a part of a global approach. In your paper, Guillaume, you write, games are a part of the education concept. My question is, why can't serious games be at the center of it? I haven't rarely or quite never seen it. Is it impossible in 2021 to put a serious game at the center of an education or training process, even in a field that knows serious games for a while, health, for example? Don't you think a serious game could be the center of a training or an education, as its only role is to be the bonus or the thing that leads to a training or education? What are your thoughts about that, Guillaume?
Yeah, thanks. I thought serious game it's a tool in additional educational because only serious game it's impossible. It's a tool for help instructor for learning clinical reasoning and decision making. For nurses who are here, decision making and clinical reasoning is more important for nurses for could help patients, and it's difficult to learn. And through for different modality of simulation, serious game can help for train to conversational with the patient, to take a lot of mistake, and you can repeat simulation. And I think in another today, I asked to the director of nursing school and the places of serious game in nursing school in France in 5 years and in continuity formation. You are so important in 5 years. And the proportion of serious game in the educational formation or initial formation of a nursing student are nearly 50% of formation of educational. And I thought the places of serious game is growing.
Thank you very much, Guillaume. Dominique, what is your state of mind? I'm always being told, yeah, there's the book, there's the course, and then if you want to, there's a nice serious game. Can it be the other way around? There's a serious game, that's what you have to learn, and there's a book to accompany, and there's a course that can go with it.
Did you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Your question is a complex question. We don't have only one response, I think, because like my colleague Guillaume, for the nursing studies, it's very, very interesting to simulate situations where the student can training the reasonement clinical reasonement. But I think there is some thematics, maybe the game or the serious games can be the center of the question when we don't have complex situations with a lot of factors, like maybe to learn some things very statics, like the anatomy, for example. In the beginning, maybe in the beginning of the bachelor, we can have some thematics with the serious games or the simulation in the center of the process. But I'm like Guillaume, the processes is very complex, and I think the good response is to think about a lot of tools, and the gaming and the serious games and the simulation, maybe the virtual reality are the future. Our students actually don't learn in the same paradigm like us, because they are very they can navigate in the new technology with a lot of competencies. They have some tools, and maybe I think the future will be that to integrate in the processes of learning a lot of tools, and maybe the serious games and the simulation can be a good response, maybe, I think. But it's very complex. And I can introduce one colleague of our team. Felicia is in the public, and she's an expert of the question of pedagogical processes, and maybe she can say something about that. But for me, it's very complex.
Thank you very much. Felicia, if you want to join in and tell us about that question, just feel free to do it. In the meantime, Hugo and Johan, maybe you have a point of view on that. I'm always feeling that serious games have to tell that it's just a funny thing next to it to be acknowledged? Is there no really now a certification or something needed for serious games to be taken more seriously, for example? Johan, Hugo, who wants to go? Johan?
Okay, I'll go. Well, I think that the context has an importance. Maybe in an educational context, such as nursing schools, etc., it's more difficult to have the game as the center, because the institutions are more kind of more solid on the pedagogical aspect. It's pedagogical games. It's not serious games in general. And in my case, for example, it was more a social workers environment where interactive and non-formal approaches are already more valued than the classical school-oriented ex cathedra presentation, etc., with lots of contents, books. So maybe the context plays a big role in the acceptance of games or gamified processes as the central activity.
Very nice, Johan. Hugo, do you have something you want to add?
I do not know about education or formal training, but to answer the question with the context of our projects, for dieting or for to restrain yourself on food, what we focus on, the classical approach is classical dieting, like you have to eat less and you have to make conscious efforts that are often painful and stressful to the patient, to the normal people. And with serious gaming, with the training, with the game, people enjoy do this training and they do more, giving the same effect or maybe more as a classical diet. So here we have an example of a serious game that is at the center of a training intervention for our projects. But as Johan say, maybe it's not serious game, but pedagogical game that are, that are on the side.
And we'll talk about the difference maybe of simulations and serious games just right after that. We have a questions. Yes, someone wants to intervene.
Yes, can I say
Dominic,
something?
yeah, of course.
For us, I think it's very important. Another thing, the places of the trainer, you know, to prepare in the beginning the students for a new way to learn, and it's very important after to play, because in the nursing studies and I think in health studies in general, the debriefing is very, it's I'm sorry about my English. It's a phase of the process is very important. And for us, the places of the trainer are very important too in the processes, you know. We know the students like to make the debriefing with the teacher. And that's the reason maybe we must to think about something hybrid processes, like sometimes in the virtual reality, but sometimes in presential with the teacher or the trainer, I think. For us, I think it's important.
I understand your point of view, Dominic. It's just the way people always present their game, just as the nice next thing that they have, and not the main thing. That was really what I wanted to address right now. We have a question from Vera Bustamante. Hi, Vera, on YouTube. It's for you, Dominic. Today in Switzerland, what is the part of serious game use in nurse formation, and for which topics?
Okay, in Switzerland, we are beginning to introduce some serious games in our way of teaching. Like actually, in our school, we are using a serious game from Belgium about the basic life support, and it's a very, very interesting tool to support our lessons. And I think we are beginning a new paradigm, introducing new technology, and it's I think. There is a relation with the pandemic COVID, because we changed. We was in a new way because the pandemic changed our way to teach. And actually, we are beginning to introduce serious games, but it's a discreet, very, very. How can I say that? It's new for us, for the teacher too, you know. And we can imagine we don't have some strong results about the add value of the serious games in the health training, but we are beginning to obtain these results, like Guillaume present with his studies. And I think that's with these results we will be more in confidence to use, you know. First, it's not simple to imagine the game. It's a tool to learn, you know, to teach, and it's a new paradigm, I think.
Thank you, Dominic, for this answer, and I'm sure Guillaume's work is going in exactly in that direction of to certification, maybe of serious games and of results that you can obtain with serious game. The work that Hugo is doing as well is going to show the effect of serious games, and that is one of the goal of GSGS. It's also to show results for the serious gaming and gamification field. We have one more question from our audience, is for Johan from Nicholas Wank. Hi, Nicholas. Thanks for your nice presentation, Johan. Can you elaborate how exactly the collaboration with the kids was performed? One-to-one interview, group workshop, online questionnaires? How did you work with the kids to build the game?
Hello, Nicolas. Thank you for your question. Yeah, maybe I haven't been that clear on the setting. The setting is all on site, so it's workshops for example, in a classroom. Let's take the most classical example. So the part on the board is up to 4 tables with up to 6 people per board. So it's basically board games. And then at the level of the consequence and resources, then everything becomes plenary and we all discuss together. So that's basically 20 teenagers with 2 or so social workers. So it's really group sessions on site. There is no one-to-one interview. There is no online sessions. And to answer also Vera, who also had a question, is it really necessary to have a social worker? I saw that on YouTube, and it's also about the setting, which makes me think I was not clear about the setting. So is it really necessary to have a social worker leading, facilitating the thing? Yes and no. It was discussed. It's really a tool. And I would have to say that the first part, the board game, etc., was really my creation more personally, and I'm a board gamer. So I was thinking also the mindset is that the game should work by itself. Like it should answer the players with its own functioning or own gameplay, and not using any facilitator, or not at least having to have someone leading the thing. And the other part, which is more narrative, then it's more of the role-play gaming or the narrative game, and there you need a facilitator for sure. But the first part really can be played by a group of adults or teenagers it's a small strategy game. It has to remain simple. That's also an important point to be used. Most of the time, serious games have to be more simple than usual video games or board games, etc. Because we want to put some content in. So in my experience, we make it more simple to understand and to enter. But maybe that's a debate as well.
Yeah, it's a good question that is in my next question. It's a part of my next question because the second theme I would like to talk with you about is the difference between simulation and serious games. We had this conversation with Stéphane Gobron, editorial chief of GSGS. He is with us still now, and I'm sure he will listen carefully to what you are going to say, because I don't know, who do you guys think you are having a serious game or having a simulation? So I will not ask you to raise the hand if you think your game is a serious game or a simulation, but maybe what is the difference for you guys? Because in some of the games, there are some scores, in some you have no scores. What is the difference for you? For example, Hugo, what is the difference of the serious game and the simulation? And is your game a serious game?
My game would be a serious game. I do not know about simulation in particular. Maybe someone else in this in our group might answer. But for me, it's really
still you have the question of I'm eating this or that,
Yes.
and you have to simulate what you would do in real life.
A little bit, yes. It's not you're you are in front of a food. What do you do with it? It's more you have a rule that includes food, and because you are trained of this motoric action, I press, I do not press. It generalizes something in the real life, like you will be trained to not eat it. But during the game, you are not told explicitly to not press it or to not eat this food. So it might not be a simulation in this sense.
What about you? What about you, Guillaume? Do you think yours are simulations? You talked about them as simulations. So are they just simulation, or is there really a game behind it?
But for me, serious game, it's the same. It's one of modality of simulation. And for me, the question it's more, we talk about serious game or screen-based simulator. It's different. In healthcare simulation, the term or the mesh term is different. Screen-based simulator, you can see a flight simulator, you can, for healthcare, converse with a real patient, a real virtual patient. Is different about a serious game, nearly Mario Bros or the virtual serious game who present Hugo. And for me, serious game, you can learn with an educational objective. It's serious game, but we are when you are briefing scenario and debriefing, you are in simulation. And for me, serious game, it's one of modality of simulation.
Johan, what do you think about that? The board game, what is your definition? Must there be in a serious game levels, fun, leaderboard, some punishment or reward system, rules, feedback, all of that?
Well, the definition aspect is of course, a place for debate. For me, serious games are not necessarily parts of simulation, because, for example, the project I was leading, well, I'm still leading, is not a simulation. It's clearly a serious game, or even a gamified, facilitated discussion for the second part, which is facilitated. But really, the board game is a board game because we do not, obviously and luckily, we do not ask teenagers to simulate risk behaviors such as being too drunk or doing in this situation. So in this workshop situation, we do not simulate. We rather do thought experiments, and for me, this is not necessarily simulation. So the simulation is to which extent we are close to the reality in terms of movements, in terms of cognitive processes, etc. So the more it is close but not the real thing, then the more it is a simulation. But I do not necessarily see serious games and simulation on the same axis of description. You can be very simulatory and with not a lot of serious games content or aspects, or the contrary. For me, it's not necessarily, it's different axes. It's not really on the same track. So yeah. That's my 2 cents.
Dominique, what about you? Because you have some gaming aspect with opening some new levels. When you answer something, you have a new exercise, you have those rewards. So that's a game mechanic, a very known one. Yeah. But is your project a game with a score, with some luck maybe in it or not?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was in the beginning of the project, one question very, very interesting in the team project, because what is the difference between reality simulation and serious game with the place of the gaming? And the place of the gaming is it's not very easy to define. For us, maybe the game part is to open the next level, you know, and after that you can watch like a motivation to continue the game. So if you continue the game, we can make one hypothesis: you are learning something. And that's maybe the part of the game in the process. But I think probably it will be more and more difficult for the conceptors to define what is the difference of a serious game and the simulation, because I'm like Guillaume. The processes, it's more or less very, very similar, you know, but I know Stefan Gobron, and I know it for him it's a very, very hard question. For Professor Gobron, the gamification is one thing, and the simulation is another. But you know, I think the more important, it's like the way we can help our students to learn, you know. And maybe if we define it's a serious game, maybe the enthusiast of the user will grow up, and maybe we win something here, you know. Because I can give you our example. Learning something about the right passions, it's not the more sexy thematic for us, our students. And maybe opening a new way with a serious game, some students will be interesting for the first time. Okay, a game about the right passions, we will see. And maybe we can win something about that. But I don't have the good response for you. I'm sorry.
So we'll stay with that. The objective is the same, is to make people learn or change behaviors, and these are the main objectives of the project, and it's always an ongoing conversation. But still, I want to go back to you, Hugo, because when you gamify something, you most of the time simplify things, and that's maybe one of the challenges you had to face. And I was wondering, how can you simplify something as complicated as food? Because every now and then, and as Stéphane Gobron has asked in the chat as well, we were told maybe orange juice is the best thing in the world in the morning, to drink an orange juice and you have some vitamins. And now people are saying, hey, watch out, orange juice is full of sugar. You shouldn't eat that much sugar, so it's not so good. And so health and food are evolving all the times. So how can you just put a green circle around one food and a red circle on the other one, I can maybe find you a burger that is healthier than whatever salad you're eating. So how can you simplify that? And how was it a challenge? Because in a game, if it's too complicated, you can't play.
That is a really great question and a really great critique of our approach, because we do not know when we tell people to click on a salad and to click on a juice, we do not know the quality of the salad they will eat afterward. And it's true that we cannot control that. And we do not cannot find a methodology to control if they eat good salad afterward. One solution we found for this problem was to have dietetic advice before and after the session. That's something we are working on right now to implement in our game. So to have critical thinking of food, but not as a game, but more as coaching advice, as text before and after. As I think for us, this was the only solution to this problem. Because yes, maybe there is an orange juice, but I don't know if they will press themselves the orange juice or if they will drink a Capri Sun. I think that's the same thing.
Yeah, industrial orange juice, for those who don't know the brand here in Switzerland. It's a hard question in every game. And how do you address it, Guillaume, in your simulations? Is there a correct answer in your simulation? Is there something correct, something wrong, and it's yes or no? We know that with the patient, it's much more complicated in a real situation. How do you cope with that?
Depend of the educational objective of the serious game, where when you create it, it's the first reflection, but important, because for me, you can't have an autonomous serious game without debriefing. And for that, the places of nursing trainer, it's important. And depend of this objective or pedagogical objective, we can use serious game for help us during this formation. And for that, you can have a response, yes or not, but you have a complement of question, and you practice a reflexive practice with the trainer, with theoretic-constructivism with another student. And for that, for me, it's the most important when you use a serious game or virtual simulation. And I want to come back for had a reflection, because in the world of health, we have many different virtual environments, but everyone talk about serious game. And it's why it's the hard for meta-analysis to conclude clearly, because you are talking about different virtual environment. And in a health world, a lot of articles can't conclude clearly about this. And when you talk about serious game, you talk about cognitive science, neuroscience science, health science, and when you work with interdisciplinarity, it's important you have the same term.
Thank you, Guillaume, for this approach. Stéphane Gobron, editorial chief of GSGS, is with us. Stéphane?
That's a very, very interesting point we just heard. It is very true that in the literature, I mean, some terms are on fashion, like serious game nowadays and gamification. The fact in a toolbox to have a serious game, simulation, gamified simulation, I don't know, book that you are the hero and storytelling based, well, it's an advantage to have as a manufacturer, if you want, a toolbox that is full of these tools. But for sure, if you take a screwdriver or hammer, and you consider Well, it's a kind of hammer. You look, I can do that with it. No, I mean, you have to spread. And I've noticed, I made a small criticism here, that in the health department, for instance, with virtual reality, in health, if you take a look at the publication, if you have a screen and there's some graphics on it, it's virtual reality. Well, this is an issue for me when I see these publications and that have been published and reviewed. Because virtuality, there's a dimension of presence and immersion. Of course, with a screen, you can have some presence and some immersion, but it's not the same when you have HMD. That was just my point. Thank you very much for your comment.
Thank you, Stefan. I'll go to my next theme because it's linked also to this one. I wanted to point out who makes the game. When there's serious game, there are people that know about gaming, people know about what we are talking about, and sometimes people know how to transmit this knowledge. These are most of the time trainers or teachers. These are three types of persons. And I really found very interesting that in Pritz, Dominic, that you showed the behind the scene of your game on how it was built, and that people that were not developers or not gamers could really build the game with you. And I wanted you to tell us a little bit in just a few minutes, how did you come to that solution? Is it because you found it important that people with the knowledge could really put their hands in the game?
Yeah. In our project, we are working with Al-Basim laboratory, and this laboratory of simulation and of development of serious games are beginning to build a new way to make the conceptions of the serious game. And that's the new methodology. And our project, PRITS, Patients' Right Innovative Teaching Strategy, was the first project using this methodology. And the goal of this methodology, the name is collab methodology, it's to help some people like us, not coming from the informatics development.
Computer environment, yeah.
Yeah, to have some a way to beginning the reflection and to know which future steps we must to think before to beginning the conception of the serious game. Because I think it's important to say for the people of the health sector, it's not very easily to imagine, to understand the work with the conception of the serious game. For us, we don't think the development of a game it's so complex, you know, and this way of think about the conception of the serious game for the people from another sectors like the health sectors, I think it's a good way to understand the mechanic and the architecture of the conception of the serious game. And for that, I must to thanks the teams of Al-Basim for this methodology. And maybe it will be a good tool for others' project.
Thank you, Dominic, for sharing that with us, because that particular mix between people that know about gaming and people, and we can finally see you. That is very cool, Dominic. That particular mix of people that know about gaming and people that know the knowledge of what you are trying to gamify is, for me, the key to a successful game or a complete failure. Johan, it's your job to make games with knowledge. How do you get the people from the knowledge or from the training part to get involved, but not too much? Because when they get involved too much and they say, hey, this is very funny, it's a good game mechanic, and you have to say, well, maybe not. I'm a gamer and I'm a game developer and I have to tell you no. How do you do that?
That's a very good question. It's indeed not always the easiest part, but it's also a fascinating part because in my experience with board games and role-play games, which is mostly non-digital, what is interesting is that on the one hand, people want to get involved because it's kind of cool, it's novel, etc. And but it's actually very, very rich if people get involved. The worst is if they think I don't care or I'm not competent at all and I don't want to contribute because they do the whole thing. Basically, we need the content. We need also the objectives from in our case, it's from the clients. So it's important and precious if people working with us are actually working with us and putting some energy, etc. In my case, it's both content creators and communicators all together because they're social workers. They're supposed to know what they want to transmit and to transmit it. So it's two in one. On the other hand, sometimes too many cooks boil the soup. And in this particular project, it was rich and difficult at the same time because I worked with the entire prevention team of Addiction Châtel, which was rich, but also with 10 people creating a thing. You can imagine how complicated it can be, even for a simple board game. However, what is important and interesting is that since we are the geeks, people, our collaborators trust us quite a lot on the game mechanics, for example. So, and they trust us less on the, for example, on the visual aspects. Everyone has it's terrible to be a graphic designer or illustrator or whether it's on video games or on board games. I guess it's similar. Everyone has a thing to say on the visual aspects. And this is because it has to represent the content. And so I thank a lot the designer of our cards and boards for her patience. And if you like the images, she's called Sophie Gagnevin, and just contact me if you want her contacts. And that's it. So yeah, it's really the interdisciplinary thing. Is both a richness and a challenge. So thank you for putting that up.
Hugo, how was it for you? Because we talked a little bit about that before. Nutritionists, they don't have the same point of view on food, and I'm sure you had some discussions on which food you can put on. Should we put the burger or the pizza or the kebab or I don't know, whatever other food that was a danger food and the one that wasn't? Ice cream, I don't know.
Yes. We had a chance in working with a very small team, and we also had the chance of having collaborating with video game developer and video game artists that are very multidisciplinary. They touch a little bit of everything and they have a lot of experience. So in our team, we basically have two psychologists and a researcher in cognitive neuroscience that design the game, the parameters and what we have to put and not put. So we all define tuning all the details of the intervention, and then we share our ideas with those developers and video game artists, both of them, and they came up with a plan of music and scenes designed for the game to be fun, and we worked iteration by iteration to finally have a very good game. But this could be done only because we were very small team, like only 5 people. and with two people in video games that were really, really experienced in working with this kind of multidisciplinary environments. But yeah, this was for sure a challenge, but one that was in the end very beneficial to our team. We learned a lot of each other.
Yeah, thank you, Guillaume. I guess in your simulation field, maybe it's a little bit less discussed because you don't have the fun factor, or maybe sometimes we put everything in the game. We know, we train, it's good, but it's not fun enough. You don't have this problem.
It's complex for me because yes, the funny, the gamification you can have through another items. In not it's a good point, you are good at response. No, you train with a real patient for take care with patient, and if the educational objective is not this, you can't. It's clearly, and for that, this serious game or this screen-based simulator is different, and the gamification, the funny, but you can have the real fun because when you take care of a real patient, you can have a discuss as funny, but you don't have a good response and directly, and the feedback is not this, and you can't. But for the other serious game about doses calculation, you have a funny, because if you do a real good operation or a good calculation, you have a good point, and you have the fun through the serious game. And for that,
even though if you miss some calculation on doses on medication, it's gonna not be so funny.
No. But
maybe that's the proof we can do fun with everything. But maybe a last point, because we are nearly at the end of this roundtable. What is for you the importance of your games being played in one environment? For example, ça fait plaise, which could be translated into, I don't know, that rocks. For example, it's an educational game. It stays in the classroom. Vera has asked the question, can it be played outside? Or why didn't you go for a mobile game that teenagers could play on their own and then debrief on site in the school? Why did you choose that your game is being played in some kind of environment and not in the everyday life? Johan.
But it's
maybe Guillaume first. Okay, you can go first.
Okay,
you can go first, Guillaume.
Okay, the modality of use, it's important because you can do this serious game into the school, and you can do at home. But if you do at home, the debriefing, who has? You have a video conference with the teacher, for example, and for that, I think the better is two students with one computer for the socio-constructivism into the school with a good objective and the debriefing after. But you can use another serious game and you are alone with your computer, because the help seeking you can use, it's better, because if you are two, you have competence with the other students, and depend on the thematic of serious game, the objective tools, and the modality, and the limiting factor is the cost of serious game, the connection for nursing school in France. Not a lot of nursing school have a fiber optic and internet connection, and it's the most limiting factor. And mobile, no.
Maybe the answer is
No.
these kinds of things.
Tablet, it's possible through tablet, but mobile phone with a Unity developer and a lot of artists 3D and the graphics, it's so big, and perhaps in iPhone 12 it's possible, but
and that's another good point. What in your game conception should you think about before launching the game? Johan, what about you? Did you have not the what was it like? Your order was to do something in the classrooms, or do you think, oh, we can do more? We can do something they can bring with them and play by themselves.
So I would say the order was to be a tool, to build a tool for social workers to be used and facilitated by social workers in an environment that could be a classroom, but also, for example, a festival and a music festival at a booth, for example. That can be used. I'm going to do this. It's not a music festival, but it's called GSGS'. I don't know whether you know this. On Thursday and Friday, I'll be there with the material, and it doesn't need a classroom for part of the material and part of the usage. But the question of a mobile phone thing versus another tool, this is, I would say, another question. It's also a question of costs. It's much more costly to do something digital than something physical, and for such a project. So that was also one of the criteria. And another criteria is that we specifically talk about screen-based activities in a non-screen-based game, and that was one of the wishes of the client, who deals with what there is a big debate about addiction to screen activities, etc. Of course, but this actually considers that maybe teenagers are already quite a lot on their phones, and they wanted to bring them out of their phones for some time with an interactive activity that is not necessarily digital based. So that was also one of the goals, and with something that would foster the discussion and the debriefing and the briefing, as Guillaume was saying, which are very important parts, and which, to my knowledge and experience, are still easier to deal with and to facilitate in present. Even at the GSGS, we are really looking forward to see each other on Thursday and Friday, because you have all the non-verbal aspects of the interactions. And yeah, I mean, teenagers are more fragile than ourselves, and maybe if you have to act on small interactions, maybe harassing, etc., it's simpler if you have them in a group, in a classroom, or in another environment as an adult, than everyone lost in their rooms. It's easier to control somehow.
Thank you, Johan. Hugo, where is your game going to be played? Is it a game I can play going back to my work, or going to work in the morning in the subway and going back as well? Or should I play it when I'm like focused on what I want to think? What did you thought about the environment in which the game should be played?
We want our players to train really. As a cognitive intervention, at least this is what we ask them for research purposes. But if we were to distribute it for a large public, we know people will play on the train, will play moments where they can, and not necessarily putting energy in it. And even though I think it will have lesser effects, I think it will still have effect for what I'm searching. So in my case, it's okay for me if the players multitask a little bit and do that in a rough environment, in a non-optimal environments. But it's because my game is based on a lot of repetition. It's not like I am training people and I ask one question and they have to learn. They do the same movement over and over again for 20 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours. So it's fine if they do it in the subway.
And I had this small question about your game, because
Yes.
I thought it looks great and I can really see it work and be funny for people to play it. And the question is, will they get bored? Because is there an evolution? Because once I have the same salad or
Yes.
the same burger twice or three times, am I going to play tomorrow?
Unfortunately, repetition is at the key of the effects we are inducing.
I know, that's why the question.
We've worked a lot already on that, and even the people have played a month, when we asked them, do you like it or not, the score were pretty good for what we expected. On a questionnaire about video game in general, they gave it a normal score. So compared to any video game, they said it was funny enough, at least. To bypass this problem of repetition, we put difficulty setting. We have put power-ups. If you have a lot of score, if you survive long enough in the game, you have money to buy power-ups. So you renew a little bit the experience by playing again, but with some addition. You also have a ranking table, and you see the other player, how much they scored. So some participants played way more than they were asked to, just to be on the top of the ranking. So stuff like that helped a lot, and we are still trying to improve it. We surely will have mini games. We maybe have something like a scenario, things like that. Maybe a map with levels. We'll see how we work around our training effect. But for sure, this is a main challenge for me.
I guess so. Very nice to have your comment on that, Hugo. Thank you very much for being true with us also on those kinds of problem. Dominique, I'll go to you to end this conversation, but with the same question as before. In which space environment should your game be played? Is it also only for training in a class with a group of students, or can I just practice on my own? I don't know, I wake up in the morning and I just want to train a little more before I go back to school.
Yeah, actually, we was thinking about that, and for us, it's true. There is two ways to learn. We can learn alone, but we can learn with the others in the interaction. And for us, it was our choice to imagine to choose a way to use the serious games in the classroom, because we are thinking it's a good way to learn some new things, but in the interaction with the other students, because we are looking for our project like a way to beginning a reflection, you know, and that's in the reflection, in the interaction with the other students or with the teacher. We can learn more, maybe more easily, you know. But I think maybe in a future development, we can have one option with a different level to play alone, maybe in the mobile phone, but with other objectives, you know. And another point I would like to talk with you. For us, a challenge was not the graphism reality, but the cognitive. I'm sorry, not the graphism simulation, but the cognitive simulation, you know, and that's not the same thing, you know. For us, the challenge is to invite the user, the student, to make like
to feel reality, to feel it's making decisions.
And you know, it's not easy to think about the emotions, and we don't know what kind of emotions can grow up with the situation, and how can I help the students alone in home with these emotions, you know. And that's the reason actually we choose to begin the project in the classroom, to watch and to survey the interaction between the user and the emotions between the players, you know. And that's the reason we want to make the debriefing in the classroom.
And that's also what Guillaume is saying on the chat. It's important to use the serious game when you want, because to see how your students are playing and when they are learning or not, and the objective, it changes from one game to another, that's for sure, Guillaume, and there's no truth in that decision. I just wanted to know if all your 4 projects it was a decision or you had to do it in specific environments. It's been 1 hour and a half and we still haven't discussed everything we wanted to, but it's always the same in those nice discussions. So I want to thank you all for being with us. Hugo Dashberg, Dominique Correa, Johan Jacquet, Guillaume de Cormeil, thank you very much for presenting your job, and we really hope it will succeed in those different fields of the health sector. And we think it's a very nice projects, and a big round of applause to you. Thank you, of course, all viewers and spectators and the audience that was with us for your comments and questions. I hope we have answered them correctly on YouTube. You can, of course, go back to the beginning of this session to see the nice video presentation and the live presentation as well from Johan for all these projects. All 3 online sessions can be replayed and played back. I don't know, Stefan has appeared again on the screen. Stefan, if you have a few words that you want to say, now it's cool for you. We will meet you this week in person in Lausanne. Don't miss the chance and the opportunity to be there at the GSGS live, and we hope to see you all over there. It's on the 8th and 9th in Lausanne. I was very happy to share with you today. I hope you also had a good time, an interesting time with us. And yeah, see you soon all around. Play some more maybe. And
if you want to come, please, you have to send an email to Julien Sen. It's I mean the door will be opened, but please, you must say so because of the COVID.
And we will put it in the comments maybe of this video how you can send an email to be there, so you have everything also on the website of GSGS'21 if you type in your browser. Thank you very much, Stefan. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day, play, and take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, thank you.
Goodbye. Thank you.